Around this time last year, I decided I wanted to overhaul my desk setup. I've always loved looking at setups online, how people have styled them, and the accessories people are including. As I'd gotten so addicted to custom keyboards, and with work meaning I was sitting at my desk the majority of the time, I thought it was time to treat myself. So today, I'm going to walk you through everything in my setup. How we got here, any changes I've made since I first decided to make the change over 6 months ago, and any changes that I'm considering after living with it on a day-to-day basis. So let's start with the concept. When I first started out looking, I had an idea of how I wanted to copy every other content creator for this setup, but just being in my head didn't really cut it. So I scoured the internet for images, inspiration, absolutely anything at all that I thought would make this space a little bit more me and overall would be something I would enjoy spending time in and be able to be productive in. The result was a mood board that looked something like this. This made a few things fairly obvious. White was going to be a big factor for this setup, with sprinklings of black throughout. I've always had a black and white PC, and the majority of my keyboard builds either have beige or black within them somewhere, so it made sense for me to keep this as the major theme for the setup. I also knew I wanted some form of shelf as well as some pictures behind my monitor. The shelf would be great for overhead shots as well as be a nice place for decor, and putting some frames on the wall would give the space a little more character, and also hide these horrific holes in my wall. As much as I like the look of walnut and other wooden materials in setups, for me a nice cookie cutter white and black seemed like the most fitting. So for the past 6 months I've been building on this initial concept, figuring out what works for me and what doesn't. And this is where we're at. Starting off with what's powering it all, I have a 14-inch Macbook Pro with an M3 Pro chip. This is one of the latest additions, and since being a Windows man for so many years, I'm really enjoying being back on Mac OS. Aside from it being able to handle all of my editing tasks flawlessly, it also just looks great in the corner, and is far better to look at than the bulky NZXT case that used to be on the desk. I really like the flexibility to take it on the go, and just being back in the Apple ecosystem has been suiting me perfectly for what I wanted it for. It's currently sat on this stand from Amazon that I picked to match the overall theme, but I would love to swap this out eventually to something a little more premium like this offering from Oaky Wood. The desk itself is a FlexiSpot EB2 frame with an 160x80 white desktop sat on top of it. This isn't sponsored, and the desk itself is something that I picked up on Black Friday last year after seeing a lot of good reviews about it online. I like this one especially as it had the dual motors and the anti-collision function, so it seemed like a pretty good investment. The size literally fits perfectly within the space and gives a large amount of real estate for whatever task I want to do. I've got to admit I don't use the standing feature as much as I would have liked to, but having the option to switch between standing and seating modes to keep myself productive is great. Now sat on top of the desk we have this desk shelf from Rockdeer. This one was actually the strangest addition because I didn't want to fork out for a Grovemade or Ugmonk shelf, but all other options at the time seemed to be way too expensive for what I was getting. I had the idea of DIYing it, but after pricing everything up I stumbled upon this one on Amazon, and looking at the cost to work ratio, this one seemed like the smartest plan. But no, after setting it up, quality is stellar for the price, it looks great and allows me to hide easy access bits like notepads and pens under it without cluttering up the rest of my desk. I also like being able to add little things to this to make the space a little bit more me. I've had this NRD Nest with a bunch of stock GMK keycap colours for a while, and I think it's a great little accessory. Shout out to the little Pikachu on the other side that my mum got me as well. Now above the shelf is this IPS BenQ monitor. It's nothing overly fancy, but it's 32 inch, which is the perfect size for me, and honestly it has great colours for editing. This is sat on an Envision MX200 monitor arm, which is great for the price, and I've had no problems with it since I picked it up. Next to the monitor, I have the Shure MV7 microphone on this boom arm from Millennium. Obviously the mic's pretty standard nowadays in terms of dynamic mics, but it came with the arm way back when I started making videos about keyboards, so I've never really thought about switching this to another arm. Eventually I think I'd love to be able to get an arm that can hide fully out of sight when not in use, but I mean I don't massively mind how it looks, so it will do for now. Having a built-in XLR cable just means it looks far less cluttered as well, so I really like that. Now talking about keyboards, this will change depending on the day, but mouse-wise one thing I've been loving recently is the Lift by Logitech. This isn't going to be for everyone, and for people who predominantly game there are going to be 1,000,001 better options, but for ergonomics I think this is the best looking vertical mouse there is, especially for its price point. Eventually I think I'll pick up the MX Master 3 as I do love how that thing looks and feels, but for now this has been treating me perfectly fine. My desk mat changes almost as much as my keyboard, but recently I've been enjoying the Ultimat from Journey. Being able to charge my phone or earbuds when working at the desk is honestly far too useful to swap it out a lot of the time, not to mention the black leather just looks fantastic against the white desktop. Now if we go a little forward and under the desk shelf we reach the two little boxes that power the entire setup. The first one controlling all of my audio is the Arturia Mini Fuse. On the other side we've got the CowDigit TS3 Plus. This thing is honestly fantastic. I picked it up on sale as well, and just being able to route my entire setup through a Thunderbolt cable from my Macbook is amazing. The two prints I went for are in IKEA 40x50 frames, and currently are just some cool canvas prints I found on AliExpress that kind of match the vibe of the setup. I'd love to replace these with some bits from independent artists matching the whole vibe aesthetic of the setup, so do let me know if you or someone you know makes some cool prints in the comments. I'd love to check them out. Now, the final two pieces of the setup are this IKEA floating shelf that I've styled with a bit of hanging ivy for a little colour in this bookcase. This was kind of an accidental find, but it has this slide out section for all my keyboard tools and pens, and this section here for some of my favourite arty books for when I want a little bit of inspo while at my desk. The Creative Act was a book I read for the first time last year, and honestly is now one of my favourite books. I love how it discusses the creative process and is just a great boost of motivation for when I don't have any. The bookshelf itself is from a brand called A Plum Korea. I found it locally to me and loved the look, and I think it fits in really nicely with the rest of the setup. The final part is this pegboard that everyone and their mum has from IKEA. But there's a reason it's so common, right? I have had this thing in a number of configurations, but I love how it is now, with easy access to switches and my most used tools, as well as cables and a hard drive tucked away on this top shelf. I went for the smaller size, but I could see myself eventually getting the larger one if I wanted to ever display keyboards or get those third-party plant pots that you see online. Sick. So that's everything in its current state. As it is now, I have really been enjoying it, but there are a few things that going forward I'll be looking to change. The first is to bottom mount the cow digit in the audio interface, out of sight, out of mind. I think it just looks so much cleaner and it would just tie things together a little bit more in the setup. I didn't mention lighting, and it's because the spot really isn't that well lit. For now, I just have this subtle warm temperatured light strip from IKEA at the back, but I think I'd like to add a light bar above the monitor. I see them everywhere, and I think for late nights at the desk it would be the perfect addition. During the day, now my PC isn't here, the natural lighting is pretty good, but the monitor lights can get a little straining on the eyes if I'm sat here late at night. The last thing is a larger monitor. I love the one I've got now, but I think I'd like to upgrade to a wider screen just for making editing that little bit easier with some more screen real estate. I used to be a big advocate for having two monitors, but I really do like having a single one now. It looks a whole lot cleaner and honestly hasn't impacted my productivity at all. I really thought it would. This whole process has been a massive learning curve for me, taking a concept to reality and making changes along the way to really fit my preferences in terms of both productivity and aesthetics. I never really used to understand how people got so into making desk setups, but I do understand now, and if you're into this kind of thing, you're never really finished. It's a process and one that you should enjoy the journey of, not just the destination. Adding pieces, taking them away, and overall just enjoying the space that you have. Now, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Do make sure to like and subscribe if you did. If you're interested to check out any of the items I've mentioned today, I've linked them all in the description. Make sure to join my Discord and follow me on Instagram for any other updates. Thanks for watching, and I will see you nerds in the next one. Peace. New camera, I've got to find the button now.